It is the end, but the moment has been prepared for. So yes, we have reached the finale of season 11 of Doctor Who, and I know, that it wasn't a two-part finale, but I'm just going to talk about both the episodes in this one video because I feel like they had a lot of the same issues in terms of storytelling, though I definitely think It Takes You Away. I think It Takes You Away was generally a better episode than the finale, which was a bit sort of middle of the road. It was kind of like average in the same way a lot of this series has been kind of average. There has been amazing episodes like Rosa and the Witchfinders and Demons and stuff, but these were one-off stories, and a lot of the stories that had to feel epic didn't feel epic. They just sort of felt like a middle of the road Shakespeare Code type of episode. Also, another thing we are saying goodbye to in this video is this house where I film all my YouTube videos and this beautiful bookcase. I'm very sad to see it go, but I am moving to Canada to study abroad for 6 months, so even though I won't have these lovely books in my background, I might have like snow in the background next time. I don't know, maybe I'll just do all my videos outside in the snow in a really thick coat, like I'm a sort of polar bear or something. I don't know. So, let's start talking about these two episodes. Obviously there's going to be spoilers, like, I think that's a given if you have been watching my videos up until this amazing two-part finale that I'm doing right now. Let's start by talking about It Takes You Away, which was by far my favourite of these two last episodes. I would say it was an episode that worked, but it had so much more potential to be great, in the same way the finale did. And so I'm just going to sort of talk about the things that weren't quite working before I go into things that were working, because, you know, that's just how the human brain works, the negative things always stick out the most. So we start the episode in Norwegian Fjord, and I don't even know if we've ever been to Norway before. One of the things I really have been enjoying about this season is that it does feel more international. We're not just doing history of the UK, we also did history of India and the history of Pakistan, but also I think this is like one of the first times a contemporary episode has been set in another country that wasn't just America, so that was quite exciting. It looked gorgeous. I mean, the direction in all these episodes you just can't fault. It's brilliant. And then we have a couple of jokes about All Your Rebellion. One of the things that has really come across me this season is that the only character that is at all funny is the Doctor and occasionally Graham. Occasionally other characters have like funny lines, but when it comes to like the emotionally impactful stuff, there's never much humour there. And that really bugged me, particularly in... I'm just going to jump straight forward with like no particular order in this one. It's particularly in the bit where Graham gets reunited with Grace, because that scene, it was just so stale, it was so boring. And to compare it to another scene in Doctor Who where that idea of being reunited with your dead spouse really worked would be in Doomsday, I think that's the correct episode, where Pete and Jackie Tyler are reunited. Well, Jackie Tyler's reunited in the alternate version of Pete. And that scene is really sweet, and it's really funny, because Jackie keeps fixating on how rich he is, even though she's missed him for so long, and she goes, I don't care about that. How very. That scene is so funny, but it's so sweet, and so when they do eventually like run across to each other and hug, because you've already felt all the warm and fuzzy things inside, you feel that their connection, you feel their relationship, and it's satisfying to see them getting back together. However, in this scene, Grace's personality seems almost non-existent, apart from saying Graham or Brian. And that's not the character we were introduced to in the first episode. In the first episode, she definitely had character. The way people have always been talking about her is like, she's very adventurous and outgoing, and she's the one who would have travelled in the TARDIS, no question, if she hadn't fucking died. Yes, she is definitely a moral support centre for Graham and Ryan, but she also is somebody who has her own ambitions and her own beliefs, and there are so many points in this like little monologue they're giving to each other where she just sort of says, oh Graham, I support you, and not like the scene where Graham says, oh, I met Rosa Parks. It could have led to like a scene where she talked about Blake the Snake, or the scene where Grace talked about her own relationship with activism and her relationship with being a black woman in the UK, but in a funny way, like in like a sort of turn of the cuff moment or something. And instead we just sort of get her going, Graham or Brian, Ryan will be fine, he's a smart lad. And it just, she doesn't seem to have any other personality other than talking about these two men, which it's a bit frustrating that this female character's entire storyline has sort of been stripped down to just, oh, it makes men a bit sad. which is just depressing and boring, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it in Doctor Who, I'm sick of it in all TV shows. So there are moments in this story that do really work. So like the whole build up to eventually finding the Solar Tract is really cool. Like the idea of the monster in the woods and the character of Hannah. Like, okay, her Norwegian accent wasn't brilliant, but she was a very convincing version of that character, I think. I mean, sometimes some of the lines she said were a bit cheesy. Like I said, the dialogue just needs some like thing. But she was still like a convincing character and a recognisable character, because at the end of the day she just wants her dad to come back. I mean, that's just like something that all kids want, really, isn't it? Then we go into the anti-zone, and the anti-zone is really cool as a concept. Like, I actually think that this episode should have been the finale, because what we actually get in the Battle of Ranskoor, blah 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 blah, is just a sort of cheap rehashing of Journey's End, which Journey's End is the culmination of 4 years worth of world building and ground building to get this really epic finale with all these characters and all this pathos and all this just brilliance. And he's shoving it, he being Chris Chibnall, is shoving it at the end of his first season without doing any of that building up to that. And then he's not even doing it in a particularly like way where it feels particularly threatening, because all we see of the Earth is that it gets hit by a laser beam, but nobody on Earth seems to care. We could have done with a cut to like Yaz's family going mad, or newsreaders saying, "Oh my god, look what's happening in the UK, it's mad." I mean, I know that was a Russell T Davies thing, it didn't really become a thing that much in the Moffat era, but it really gave a story a sense of scale. Like, if you're going to bring Earth into this story anyway, you should cut back and see what's happening to it. It might be Earth from the future, it might be a situation like Christopher Eccleston's season 1 finale, where we don't see Earth getting destroyed, but we do see a lot of characters dying in that story, so we do get a sense of the scale. Another thing, that finale didn't really have the emotional pathos. Like, I cannot watch The Parting of the Ways without crying because of Nine's regeneration. And I don't want Jodie to regenerate. I really don't. I don't want... If she does go after 2 seasons, I will be absolutely heartbroken. That doesn't mean she can't have like an emotional climax. Like in the Russell T Davies era, at the end of every season, a character left, and so that would be the emotional pathos of that season. But Stephen Moffat also had some emotional pathos. Like, he had that speech that Matt Smith gives in The Big Bang to like sleeping Amy, and he had Clara letting go of Danny in Death in Heaven, and the Doctor and Missy sort of coming to terms with their relationship and everything. Whereas this episode felt just underwhelming, and like it was hitting the emotional beats in a way that it didn't actually affect you. It reminds me the most of The Doctor Falls, because in that story there's so many elements like that are brought together, but there's, number one, there's too many elements, and number two, that it's trying to do too much too quickly in a story. And I suppose that's the thesis of this video, is that I think both these stories could have benefited from being 2-parters. First, if it takes you away, I think that the Doctor should have been trapped with the Solar Tract for more than about 2 minutes. It wasn't even 2 minutes, it was about a minute where the Doctor's like, okay, so I'm trapped here now, and then the Solar Tract's like, yeah. And the Doctor's like, oh no, I can't be trapped here because it's going to collapse, that's sad. And then she leaves. And it's just... It is a really cool concept. Like, I do think it was a really cool concept. I think it would have made a better finale because it was more original than the whole Battle of Ranskoor, blah 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 blah, where Tim Shaw is stealing planets. We could have just had this episode split into 2 parts. And I know it wasn't written by Chris Chibnall, but I feel like this whole system of that the head writer has to be the one always in charge of storylining and stuff doesn't necessarily benefit the series, because if you have somebody who's a good producer and is good at thinking of story ideas, like Chris Chibnall clearly has quite a few ideas up his sleeve, but isn't so good at writing the dialogue himself, let's be quite frank here, then he could just say, do you know what, I'm not writing the finale this year, I'll give it to Ed Heim, I'll see what happens there. Or I'll give it to Joy Wilkinson, because I think her episode was the best episode of the season so far. We have this issue that both these stories are so condensed, and so when we have the anti-zone, it doesn't really feel like a threat properly, because the character of Ribbons is like interesting. That whole the whole scene, it sort of felt like it was very Neil Gaiman-esque, but Ribbons gets killed by the flesh-eating moths, which he has been defending himself against for ages. The Doctor and Co managed to get away from them pretty easily. Ryan and Hannah is blind, managed to run away from him about 5 minutes. And it's just, is Ribbons a complete idiot? Is that why he was killed? Like, I mean, again, that could have been solved with like a line just saying, oh, Ribbons is such an idiot. You know, he's more obsessed with eating than he is with his own life. It was just a bit frustrating because it was like a cool concept. Again, like I said, it was very Neil Gaiman. And then the finale, where the Doctor is talking to the frog in the shape of a universe, is cool. I like it. It's very Douglas Adams. You can't say Douglas Adams didn't like Doctor Who, because Douglas Adams used to be the script editor of Doctor Who and he wrote City of Death. So it's just a shame that everything was so rushed. You didn't feel the impact of the scary things. I mean, you could have almost had like the anti-zone being a big threat, and then the conclusion would be the Doctor going into the parallel universe, going into a Solitract and discovering Grace and Trina, and that could have been a cliffhanger. And then the rest of the next episode, you could have had like 15 to 20 minutes of having to realise it's not them and going back, and that being a more emotional finale. And then the Doctor and the Solitract talking for about 20 minutes and getting like the thing is, Jodie took the lines she was given brilliantly. The pacing is absolutely not her fault, because, you know, there will be some idiots that blame everything on her even though she's not in charge of the writing. But the performances are there. The performances are great. It's just the writing that is letting them down. And so, another thing is that, again, with the emotional beats, they're too obvious. How does Graham realise that it's not really Grace? Oh, because she says that Ryan will be fine without him. I mean, that's obviously what she would say. I mean, like, a 4-year-old could have written that. It frustrates me that they're doing, like, everything right, but they're not doing it in an original way, and so it doesn't feel like Doctor Who. It feels like, I don't know, like a really basic Disney movie or something. Everyone's sort of going, Resolution looks more like the finale because it's called Resolution. It's probably got the Daleks in it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited for that. I mean, that's going to be the last TV I watch in the UK before I leave the country. It frustrates me because I feel like Chris Chibnall is dumbing down his writing. He can write really well. Like, in Broadchurch, you didn't have this, like, ham-fisted expositionary dialogue. You didn't. You knew who those characters were, and the emotional beats impacted you. Like, when you find out who the killer is at the end of season 1, damn, that is an emotional moment. That is heartbreaking. Do we have anything even comparable to that in this series of Doctor Who? No. I feel like Chris Chibnall, his, like, hamasha, his fatal flaw in writing, if you will, is that he has dumbed it down, and he has said, oh, this is a children's show and it was too complicated and Moffat was in charge, so I'm going to dumb it down. Yes, that's fair enough. This finale wasn't as terrible as The Wedding of River Song or The Doctor Falls, because it wasn't, like, so nonsensical and, like, twisty and turny in ways that you couldn't even understand. However, it was just so stale and it wasn't exciting, and yeah, I didn't find The Wedding of River Song very exciting. I didn't find Doctor Falls very exciting. There were some finales up there that were really exciting, like Hellbent. I know a lot of people hate that episode. It's an exciting episode. You don't know what's going to happen next. It's crazy. So, I don't know, lads. I don't know. I would just say that I really hope next season isn't played as safe. Like, I know that there are idiots who are like, oh, the Doctor's female, I'm not going to watch anymore, but anyone with half a brain could see that actually what was going to happen was that loads more people would watch it who had gone off Doctor Who during the Stephen Moffat era because of the female Doctor, which is exactly what happened if we see the statistics. So I think it was just played too safe. It didn't go out there enough. And it's a shame because it really undersold Jodie Whittaker, it really undersold this Doctor. I don't want it to be the scenario where we have to get to like our 3rd female Doctor to people to say, oh yeah, no, I get it now. I mean, and I don't want Jodie Whittaker to go down history as being, oh, that female Doctor, it didn't work. And it's a shame because she was the first, but her era wasn't very good, and it's just, I just wish she didn't have to prove herself twice as much as every other actor who's had to play the Doctor, but she does. Another thing I would like to talk about in terms of the lack of stakes was this whole neural balances situation. So, the neural balances, if you take them off, they will cause you to lose your memory. And the Doctor and Yaz have to take theirs off so that the Ux can regain their memory. And are they affected by it? They get a headache. What? They get a headache? This is supposed to be something that's stopping you from getting basically like dementia. Like, it's stopping Paltraki from being able to remember his own name. And what does the doctor? Oh, she gets a headache. That's a shame. And again, Chris Chibnall can write better than this. It's not just his fault as a writer. In 42, when the Doctor looks into a sun, it's been established throughout the story the Doctor can't look into a sun, but he looks into a sun, and that has an impact on him. That properly impacts the plot, and it properly impacts him. You get to see him properly in pain. And you really get to see how brilliant Martha is, because she manages to, you know, save him, even though that she doesn't even understand how this technology from the future works. But she's just such a great doctor that she manages to freeze his brain and, you know, solve everything. It just, why couldn't you have a moment as impactful as when David Tennant was sort of like spitting the words "burn with me" while he was, well, after he'd looked into the sun? I don't understand why he's playing it so safe. It's not working. And another thing is that the characters in this story, in the last story I'm talking about, didn't really make an impact. I mean, Tim Shaw was meant to be kind of Darth Vader, but because he never really did anything more than shoot a laser beam at the Earth, he wasn't really that threatening. And so the way they get rid of him is they leave him sentient in a pod for thousands of years, which is apparently better than killing him. Is it? Is it really? And this is something that a lot of people have picked up on, is that this whole series, the Doctor's had some really messed up morality. It's like, well, I won't kill people. I won't kill people. I will, however, let them be tortured and suffer for the rest of their lives. She did this with the spiders. She did this and that. Well, she didn't do it. Graham did it. But this happens with Tim Shaw. The Doctor doesn't even seem to, like, bother to ask what's happened to Tim Shaw at the end. And I get it's just a shame, because there were good moments in this episode, like when the Doctor says "travel hopefully" at the end, like that whole little speech is great. But I am one of these people who really wants to see the darker side of her, and it gets hinted at when Graham says "I'm going to kill Tim Shaw." We never get to see the anger of the Time Lord in this story, and it's just a waste of what is such a great actor and such a great cast. I suppose that's it in terms of my sort of review, because I don't really want this video to be too long. I give It Takes You Away like an 8 out of 10, and I'd give the finale a 7, or maybe like a 6.7. Like, it was enjoyable, but it wasn't great. Yeah, that's it. That's the conclusion of this series of Doctor Who reviews. It's the conclusion of reviews in this house, in front of this bookcase. Just the conclusion of me making videos in the UK, which is mad. With that aside, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see me making videos in the snow. Leave a comment on what you thought of the finale, and like this video and share it with people, because really we all need to spread the knowledge, and we need to spread discussion and love of Doctor Who in, you know, a positive way. Okay, goodbye.